Hello, everybody. Welcome to the NEHA FDA Retail Flexible Funding Model Grant Program Application webinar. This is our second webinar, and we're all happy to have you here. We do have our grant portal open currently, and we're happy to answer any questions you guys might have about it. I am going to give a minute or two just for more participants to file in before we start our presentation. Before we start, please use the Q&A function on your Zoom toolbar to ask any questions for our team. Also, use the chat to drop in where you're from, what jurisdiction you're representing, state, local, tribal, territorial, etc. We'd love to know just so we get a sense of who we're talking to here. I am going to pull up our presentation now so we can get started. This presentation is being recorded. It will also be available. The slides will also be available on the NEHA website. The first webinar is also available under the RFFM resources on the RFFM page on NEHA's website. This will go right under the first webinar as well. But I just want to say again, thank you all for coming here. Big welcome. We really are excited to get this grant year 26-27 started. And we have our application portal open right now for the NEHA Flexible Funding Model Grant Program. So I would like to introduce some of the people here today. First, I'll hand it over to Mary Beth Neeson, who is our FDA RFFM Project Officer.
Hello, everybody. And many of you, I see the names popping up in the chat that I recognize, and you probably recognize me. I've been the project officer for the Flexible Funding Model on behalf of FDA for several years now. I just wanted to say welcome, and I hope you get a lot of information in this session today. NEHA, over the last several years of working the Retail Flexible Funding Model, has been gone above and beyond to make sure that anyone that wants to apply understands how to apply, has the information they need to make good decisions on what they want to apply for, but also to have assistance available, not just during the webinar, but all the time, so that you can reach out if you're having any issues with the application process or not knowing what's available to you or any other questions. So they have been a wonderful resource, and that is why they put on this particular event, so that you all have a chance to get to know what's going on with the program this year and what's available to you. I also want to recognize our retail food specialists at FDA. They are a wonderful resource as always. While they don't necessarily deal with how the computer system works for the application process, they, of course, are a wonderful resource if you're trying to understand where you are in the process and where maybe you should be applying, whether it should be a track 2 or whether you should get training or whether you should try to be a mentor or mentee. They're a wonderful resource, and of course, they know the standards backwards and forwards if you have any questions on those. They're always helpful if you want to reach out to them as well. I hope you'll use your resources if you feel like you're not sure what direction to go in. And hopefully this session will clear up any issues or thoughts that you're not sure you understand, and you won't even need those phone calls. But if you do, know that we're all available. I'll turn it back to Evan. I hope you all get a lot of information out of this, and we're super excited for those that want to apply this year. Good luck.
Great. Thank you, Mary Beth. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rosie DeVito, our Programs and Operations Manager for the RFFM program.
Thank you, Evan, and hi, everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us today. It's really great to be here with such a committed group of retail food safety professionals. I'm really proud to be a part of this program and to work alongside you and my colleagues at NEHA, our partners at FDA, NACCHO, Public Health Partners, and our project director, Dr. Mike Rendawa, and the MedSeva team. Over the last 4 years, working on this project at NEHA, I've had the opportunity to see this program in action through mentor-mentee sessions, peer networking, AEC presentations, and the real impact that you're making in jurisdictions across the country. Whether you're new to the program or have been with us for years, we really value your leadership and your role in advancing retail food safety nationwide. As we move into this new RFFM grant cycle, there's real reason for optimism and renewed confidence in the program's future. We expect a return to more typical funding levels, including stronger support for training, the reestablishment of the mentor-mentee opportunities, and space to explore new and innovative program efforts. We recognize that the past year has raised some valid questions about whether the effort to apply felt worth it, and those concerns were heard. At the same time, we continue to see that even modest awards can generate meaningful, lasting impact when paired with mentorship, shared resources, and strong peer networks. RFFM has always been about more than funding alone. It's about the momentum, the connection, and the collective progress. NEHA remains deeply committed to growing and strengthening this program and to advocating for the maximum possible funding to support retail food regulatory jurisdictions, because this work and your work is what matters. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back to Evan. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rosie. I'll give a quick introduction of myself. I am Evan Sattel. I am part of the NEHA RFFM advisory team. I'm here to support you through your grant with any kind of technical questions or subject matter questions that you have around the retail program standards or your grant requirements. So I'm always here for assistance for current grantees as well as future grantees. For now, I am going to turn it over to Art and Jenna from our grants team to give a quick introduction. Art?
Thank you, Evan. I'm here for Q&A reasons, but have been around for a while in this program and excited to continue supporting. Jenna is going to give the presentation today, so I will pass it over to her.
Yeah, thanks, Art. Hello, everyone. Happy to see you all here. And I am going to walk you through some of the specifics about the grant program for this upcoming funding year. I'm excited to work with all of you once again this year. So as we get started, we want to talk through some of the goals and benefits of the retail program standards. Number one is the promotion of inspectional uniformity and consistency, all at your own pace. So this is a voluntary program. Things are set up to be very flexible and meet you where you are. There's also the encouragement of building relationships with other jurisdictions, state, local, tribal, and territorial networks that are going to allow everyone participating to assist each other and receive assistance where needed. And then finally, it's an inclusive program. Any food protection jurisdiction enrolled in the retail program standards is welcome to apply for this funding. So for this year, which is our 2026-2027 granting year, most of the aspects of the program are going to remain the same. The number one requirement is that enrollment in the retail program standards. You are still going to find all of your grant information and be able to register for the grant program on the NEHA website. That's neha.org/retail grants. Everything you need is going to be right there. It is the same grant portal that we have used in the past. So if you already have your username and password, you're still going to the same place to manage these applications. And if you are new, you will receive that information just as soon as you register for access to the grant portal, again, on that NEHA website. These grants will last a full year for the performance period of April 1st, 2026, all the way through March 31st of 2027. And then, as Rosie was talking about, we do expect all of our grant category funding to remain the same as in prior years, and really to return to that level of normal that we're used to with good funding in our training and mentorship grants as well. So this year for you, we do have 4 different types of grants that you can apply for. The first 2 are our base grants, Track 1 and Track 2, and they both offer, in addition to their base grant activities, you have the option to apply to be a mentee, as well as the option to attend training, so that training optional add-on. For those of you who have been awarded a Track 3 Maintenance and Advancement Base Grant from last year, if you would like to apply for the 1-year optional add-on, this is going to allow you funding for requesting to be a mentee or for the training, so any retail food safety training. And this is for all of our Track 3 folks. Even those of you who received capacity building funding can apply for those grants. And then finally, for our Track 2 applicants, as well as our Track 3 existing grantees, if you would rather be a mentor than a mentee, you would fill out a separate mentor application in order to be a mentor for the upcoming granting year. Our other grant categories that we've offered in previous years are special projects, capacity building, and then those 3-year Track 3 grants are not being offered this year, but we do hope to be able to offer those in future years. All right, so we'll get into some of the specifics about each of the different grant types and who they are targeted for and what you need to do to apply for them. So for our Track 1 development-based grant, the only eligibility requirement is that you have to be enrolled in the retail program standards. This is mostly a fixed funding grant for all of the components except for the training. Your required outcomes for this grant are completion of a self-assessment of all 9 standards, as well as the completion of a comprehensive strategic improvement plan, or CSIP. And for doing that, you're going to get a fixed funding of $5,000. Then you have the option to apply for training dollars. If you do select this option, you will have to provide a budget for that up to $7,500. And we do intend for these funds to be used for the self-assessment verification audit workshop, as well as some FDA regional meetings. Mary Beth, do you have any information on the scheduling of any of those? I know it was still kind of being determined.
It is still being determined. There are some things within not just FDA, but the federal government in relations to travel and training and conferences and all the variety of things. We're still working through those, but we certainly hope to do some in-person activities, but we're still working on those dates and approvals and how those go. So,
okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks for that update, Mary Beth. So we will definitely keep that that information posted as soon as it comes available. It'll be on the NEHA website, but you are absolutely encouraged to apply for these training funds and just and we can talk about this a little bit more when Art takes over as well. Any questions? But we encourage you to apply for the funds and just say how you intend to use them, and you can certainly put TBD with some estimates for your budget if you would like to apply for those training funds as a Track 1 grantee. And then finally, we have the optional outcome for mentee to become a mentee with fixed funding of $10,000. So for these Track 1 base grants, you can apply for up to $22,500 all through one single application. All right, moving on to Track 2. Track 2 development-based grants do also require that you are enrolled in the retail program standards, but they're also going to require for eligibility that you have a current self-assessment of all 9 standards, which means it needs to be dated February 12th, 2021 or later, and a current CSIP. So this, again, is going to give you a bunch of fixed funding outcomes. Everything except for training will be a fixed funding reimbursement. The required outcome for Track 2 is that you work on at least one standard of standards 1 through 8, and that's going to get you that fixed funding of $5,000. Then you have the option to work towards meeting standard 9, and there's 2 different ways you can do that. You can do your risk factor study through a file study approach, which is going to get you a $5,000 award, and or you can do your risk factor study through the data collection or hybrid approach, which is going to get you a fixed funding of $10,000. You again have that option for retail food safety training, for which you do need to provide a budget of up to $7,500. You have the option to apply to be a mentee for up to $10,000, fixed funding. And then you have the option, if your self-assessment of all 9 standards is expiring within 12 months, you have the option to apply for $3,000 in fixed funding to update that self-assessment. So in total, you can apply for up to $35,500 for this granting year, again, through one single application for Track 2.
Hey, Jenna, let me interrupt before you go to
sure.
Track 3. Amber Kohlberg from Wisconsin has a couple pretty specific standard questions. She asked if she should ask them here or later. I said she can go ahead and ask them here. Others might benefit. So if Mary Beth or somebody feels confident on answering those, please do. And we can also pick those up at the end too, if there's time.
Sorry, Arda. Okay. All right, so moving on to our Track 3 one-year optional add-on grant. Again, this is for only for those folks who have a current Track 3 maintenance and advancement-based grant in good standing. So, and that's going to include anybody who has those Track 3 grants, whether or not you received capacity funds. In this application, you can apply for retail food safety training, again, with that detailed budget of up to $7,500. And you can also apply to be a mentee for fixed funding of $10,000. So this is a $17,500 option total if you select both of those outcomes for our Track 3 grantees. And then finally, we have the option to be a mentor, which we love our mentors sharing all of their knowledge base with our mentees. And this is a really important program that we do with NEHA. So we definitely hope that people will apply for this again this year. This is a separate application if you'd like to be a mentor. So instead of applying for that option within the other grants, you're going to just do this separate application. It is open to our Track 2 applicants as well as our existing Track 3 grantees. And it's a fixed funding grant, and it depends on the number of mentees you select. So somewhere between 1 and 5, and that funding range is going to be $12,000 to $24,000. So if any of this sounds like it would benefit your program, we really hope that you will consider enrolling and applying. So the very first step, if you have not done it already, is becoming enrolled in the retail program standards. This is a quick and simple thing. You can follow this link here on the NEHA website, and it will walk you through the few steps to enroll. Once you have done that, or if you've already done that, you will need to register for access to the grant portal. So again, this is going to be right from that NEHA website, or you can follow this direct link, but there is a button that will take you to the grant portal right from the NEHA homepage. And you will just register for an account that will allow you to access the grant portal since everything is done through that. And then you can go ahead and apply. So you have until February 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern on February 12th. The grant portal will remain open until then. Once you have registered for your username and password, if you're a new applicant, you're going to receive that information very quickly, usually the same day, sometimes up to 48 hours if we have to do a little extra verification on the back end, but we do get those to you as quickly as possible. And if you ever have any questions about your registration, if it seems like things aren't going like they should, please reach out to us as soon as possible and we will get any issues taken care of. All right, so if you are considering applying, we do want you to be sure of which grant to apply for. So just going to run through some of the eligibility for each of the grant types once again. Those Track 1 development-based grants are designed for our new first-time applicants or for people who are returning to the retail program standards after some kind of extended break. The requirement is that you are enrolled in the retail program standards, and the grant is for completion of an updated self-assessment and a comprehensive strategic improvement plan. For Track 2, again, you have to be enrolled in the standards, and you have to have a self-assessment of all 9 standards dated February 12th, 2021 or later. You also have to have a comprehensive strategic improvement plan that covers all 9 of the standards as well. And then finally, for Track 3, if you would like to apply for that add-on, you have to be a Track 3 grantee, and you need to be in good standing with that current grant. So all of your reporting requirements need to be up to date for your current grant. Want to take a minute just to thank all of you for being here. We're so excited to have So many folks interested in the program. So thank you to our SLTT participants. Thank you for all of the support from FDA, from our retail food specialists, from Mary Beth, our project officer, from the JAG and other folks in leadership, as well as big thank you to NACCHO, to NEHA, to CFP, and our other partners, for everyone who makes this program come together and work so well to support the work that all of you do. So thank you to everyone for making this a success.
All right. Thank you, Jenna. And with that, I think we have some time to answer questions via Q&A. Art, if you just want to go through some of the unanswered ones, we can go through those.
Yeah, I see a couple good questions. One is from the chat. Does the self-verification or audit process to enroll take a long time to do? You can enroll in the standards. That's pretty much filling out a form and sending it to your FDA RFS. So to qualify for track 1, I mean, it's literally probably an hour or less. You're filling out a form, and then you would get a grant to complete. And this kind of bleeds into a question on the Q&A. You would get a track 1 grant, lets you complete a self-assessment of all 9 standards. That is a process of going through all the documentation for each standard and determining what you still need to do to meet them. Some people do their self-assessment and find they meet a standard. And then they can submit the paperwork to get that met, and then they can also schedule an external audit. Others just find they didn't meet any, but that's what the self-assessment's all about. That is at least a couple-month process. There's also a comprehensive strategic improvement plan for track 1, and that gets done kind of at the same time as the SA9. We've got some tools that allow those to be developed. So it's hard to answer a specific on that, but it's a good piece of work, and it's grant funded to complete the SA9 and the CSIP, but eminently doable. Thousands of people have done it. In terms of audits, it's a self-verification process for the SA9, but when you get into track 2 and you start to meet and audit standards, that process is you work through the course of the year, again, probably at least a couple months to meet most of the standards. You will achieve that standard, and then you will schedule, and you can use funds from your grant to do that. You get an external auditor. Sometimes you have to pay for that. Sometimes you can get another jurisdiction to do that for you. But again, those are processes, but those are the deliverables of both track 2 and track 3 grants. So I said a mouthful there. Others can clarify, and people, if you still have questions, let me know. I'm just going to keep going. Where can we find out if our SA9 and CSIP are current? FDA does post that information. You can find that at the website that we've mentioned a few times. You can also reach out to the team, the RFFM grant team. Our contact information is in the Q&A already. It's also in the presentation. We'll make sure we close the seminar with sharing all that contact information, but we can help you find out. You can also talk to your retail specialist. That can be a question. You might have met an SA9 and completed a CSIP a few years ago. For the most part, those need to be redone unless it's been the last 5 years. But we're happy to help you troubleshoot that. Especially with a lot of the chaos in the last year or so, the FDA website may not be up to date with that information. There's a question about the grant can be used to cover creating the CSIP and doing the self-assessment of all 9 standards. That's a track 1 grant. Can it also cover sending staff to local food safety trainings? The $5,000 base grant that you get through track 1 is a fixed funding grant. You can use that funding however you want, as long as it doesn't break federal rules, and as long as it doesn't break your agency rules. You can use that $5,000 as needed. If you get a training add-on, that does have to be some very specific trainings, not necessarily any trainings in track 1. Again, you can check the grant guidance, but also you can reach out with any questions on there. Once you get into track 2 or track 3, a lot more trainings are eligible in those higher tracks. And again, for the most part, if the training focuses in a significant way on retail food safety, retail food safety jurisdictions, retail food safety training, anything with retail food that is going to be eligible for in track 2 and track 3. I see a question that says, how do we tie in our already written track plan? And I'm guessing that might be your CSIP or that might be your PIP in your application, but how do we tie that into the reason for traveling? Some of the best answers to justify training is you're very specific. We're going to send this person in this title to this training. This is what they're going to gain. This is how it's going to help them in the retail food protection arena, but also it's great if you say this is going to help us meet and achieve standard 2, which has to do with training. So however you can tie that together, we don't need a lot, but anything that really shows you understand that this is about retail food, that this is about meeting the program standards, and the best is, which specific standards those trainings are going to help you meet. Let me throw one out, a question to the greater group here. Can the auditor for a standard met, can they be a separate unit of our department, our quality improvement team? Mary Beth, do you have an answer for that?
Say that one again, please.
Can the auditor for meeting a standard be from our own staff, but from a separate unit, like the quality review team?
Yes, there's different ways that you can do that because it depends on what the standard is, right? If it's something that's very administrative where other people can see if you have developed procedures and plans put in place and things like that, then you can utilize that. My best idea for anybody that has that question, please talk to your retail food specialist. They'll be able to give you any information you need on what's best. Or if, while the janitor is probably a really good janitor, they're probably not your best auditor for certain things. Just like the CEO probably doesn't know what everybody's doing at the bottom of the chain and may not be a good auditor. So certainly reach out to your retail food specialists and they will be glad to help you and are most knowledgeable about the best ways to go about that, or even trying to find other auditors if that's something you need, perhaps in a different jurisdiction. So please talk to them.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Great answer. And there's a related one. The City Auditor General's Office, probably not a good option. We're looking for people with experience auditing the retail program standards program. Like Mary Beth said, your RFS, your FDA RFS can help you. If you don't know who that is, we can help you connect with them. But your best sources are another jurisdiction working on the standards. You might be able to trade auditing for them. Or there are definitely people out there who charge, minimal cost to do those audits. So we can help you, or your RFS can help you find some people to do that. Going through here, as a public health professional, do you know any required licenses, clearances, or certifications needed to apply? Is it part of meeting standards? We're looking for people with retail food safety experience, but that's really all you need if you're getting into this program. There's a lot of training in the program. The program actually is kind of self-training. So if you're new and you've got a food safety program in your jurisdiction that deals with retail food safety, feel free to apply. And you'll more than likely be in track 1, and you'll kind of get the 0 to 60 mile an hour training as part of that grant. On track 2, can the funds be used to pay contractors that are providing services in advancement towards a standard? Yeah, there are jurisdictions that reach out with people who can help them progress through the standard. So there's definitely folks out there. Again, RFS is a good source of finding those people. NEHA can help as well. Again, there's definitely jurisdictions. There's also regional groups sometimes that hire a contractor together to help multiple jurisdictions meet standards. So definitely something worth exploring. I know Evan Suttle from our team is kind of an expert in this area, so feel free to reach out using the emails and the phone numbers, and we can get you help in that area. If you have previously done a CSIP and all self-assessments are due to be updated, are you required to go back to track 1, or you can you redo them and apply for track 2? we would love people to go in track 1 once and then move to track 2. So if you can qualify for that, that's the best option. And if you can't, but you almost qualify, reach out to us. We'll help you work through your specifics. We'll talk to the FDA as needed, but we really do want people. The goal here would be that people start in track 1 and then go to track 2 and then perhaps go to track 3 when that's available. For track 1 are the forms for self-verification and audit online. Yes, all those forms are online. And again, we've got some nice tools for doing that make it very straightforward. So that's something you can reach out and get some assistance from NEHA for sure. And I believe your retail food specialist would have some tools as well.
All right, we have a question over in the chat there that I think I can answer for folks. They were talking about NEHA AEC is currently in the early bird registration period right now, and the early bird registration will probably close before the grant portal awards are made. There, we are planning on for those who are awarded training funds under this program. We are planning on opening up for a small window the early bird registration for folks afterwards, just for you folks who are awarded training dollars going forward there. So keep that in mind that, we are looking out for you. We know that the timing on things are a little bit different as we go across there. So go ahead and put in the training dollars that you think you're going to do for the AEC, and then we'll send you out an email afterwards.
Thank you, Rance, and that's a great. Thanks for doing that for folks. Yeah, and I know Evan just answered a question about what version of the food code. You can definitely be involved in this program no matter what food code your state is using, even your local jurisdiction. You may not be able to meet all the standards, you may not be able to meet all the elements, but you definitely can do a whole lot around that. We know sometimes that is not under your control. And Mary Beth, did you answer Amber's question about standard 4, criteria 3, deliverable A? I saw you typing something. You might have to hit send, or I don't know if you backed out of that one.
I didn't back out of that one. I'm hang tight.
Yeah, okay. I noticed that you can put it in there without hitting send. But Amber, anything that gets left on the table when we close this call, feel free to reach out again.
If you did put anything to the chat that we might have missed, feel free to just add it to question and answer. That way we can kind of keep track of what we haven't answered, and keep the discussion going. These are really great questions.
And there was a clarification I saw in the chat, just make sure everybody gets it. If you are trying to take advantage of the NEHA early bird registration or others, don't pay for your registration before you get the grant. That can cause some issues. Just wait and then do that afterwards, and then reach out. And I know NEHA is doing that. If you reach out and ask other conferences, they may be able to do the same thing. So definitely something to think about. But don't jeopardize paying for it, hoping to get a grant and then not getting those training funds and being stuck. That's what we don't want you to get caught with, unless you have other sources to pay. There's a question about what if you are voluntarily implementing the model food codes, if you have not officially adopted the FDA food code. It is a voluntary model code, even when you adopt it. So you definitely, whatever food code you have or have not adopted, you can definitely be involved in this program and make some significant progress. And again, they are good. Common sense. The 9 standards are good, common sense, common denominators for retail food safety. Definitely worth being involved. And you are eligible for funding in those cases.
I do see a question about the character limit on the RPS progress section. Pretty limiting if you're working on all 9 standards. What is the key information you would be expecting in that
Yeah,
text?
just say that again. That's something I can immediately address. Which field are you struggling with?
It's the RPS progress section. If you're working on all 9 standards, it's a
RPS
limiting character.
progress. Okay, and I'll take a look, and I'm guessing that's probably the same for both track 2 and track 3. So I'll take a look at those. Remember though that we are, and I will upgrade those fields, and we get these questions every once in a while, but we are not looking for you to write a book. If you can use the character limits are there and succinctly describe what you need, that's all we really need. But if you really can't do that, let us know. And just so you know, we will be updating the character limit, not just for you, but for everybody. It's an application basis. So that is something, if you start your application early, you had some tight character limits, you might have more room by the time February 12 rolls around. But again, reach out and ask any questions about that as much as you need. I think there's already 2 or 3 fields that I tweaked the character limits on. We currently have 1 person with access to the grant portal. Is it possible for staff to make their own login and see the grant for the agency, or is it only viewable, editable for 1 account? Jenna, I think, is more of an expert on that. I know we can have multiple people. Jenna, you want to talk about how that's done and any limitations?
Sure, yeah. So we can definitely grant access to more than 1 person. So just reach out to us and send us the information of the person you'd like to add, or you can, since it's open registration right now, you can just go in and register for the grant portal, and it'll connect you to your organization. There are some things that we caution with people having more than 1 person accessing the grant information. It's not restricted, like who can edit the grant application, things like that. So we just want you to make sure that you're coordinating that internally, so nobody, loses work or anything inadvertently with more than 1 person accessing. But we can definitely set that up for you.
Yeah. And if you, in the rare case where you want 1 person to work on it, but another to approve it, we can also switch from 1 person to another as well. So, but we've never had a problem with multiple access. As long as people know to coordinate internally, it won't be an issue. And Evan, I see you answering a question about baseline data for future interventions. That's one of the steps in meeting standard 9. That's definitely something. I don't know if there's more information asked for there, but that, you definitely, if you request and commit to work on standard 9, you can get funding for both gathering baseline data, doing your analysis, and coming up with future interventions.
Yeah, and I was going to link to the FDA's risk factor data toolkit. The risk factor study toolkit from FDA is kind of the Bible of getting all of those standard 9 requirements down, from your sample size to how to collect that data, either if you're doing the historical file study approach or the new data collections under the hybrid approach or the data collection approach. So I'll put that link as the response there.
And I see someone asking about, there have been multiple people offering, that are offering assistance. How do I know who to reach for different things? Your easiest way, I'm going to put it back in response to that question. I'm going to send you the contact information for the RFFM grants team. We can help you get to the right person, whether that's a standard specific question, whether that's an FDA RFS question, whether that's a grant portal question. We know a lot of the answers, but we certainly know who to send you to. So that's the easiest thing, is really just retailgrants@neha.org or toll free 1-833-575-2404. I have a question. Can you share an example on what a mentee grant season looks like? Are all team members able to benefit from the mentee program? Chelsea, do you want to say a little bit about that? If you can, I don't know if you even have access to talk. It looks like you do.
Yeah, I was a little confused maybe on the question. There could be some clarity. Kayla, feel free to chime in on the Q&A box or in the chat to add more context. Um, in terms of all team members being able to benefit from the grant, it's my understanding that the grant is going to the organization, and so it's not going to an individual unless the organization is planning to specifically contract a person to do XYZ work. So it is the intent of the funding to benefit the team, the organization at large. So activities for the mentorship program, of course, there are the deliverables related to completing the work. That's part of your work plan, your deliverables there, a site visit. The site visit is if you've never done one, it may sound intimidating, but it tends to be the most favorite and rewarding experience of the mentorship program, which is why it is a deliverable. And we strongly encourage folks to start planning those as soon as you can. They typically would be the mentees visiting the mentor site. Typically it's a day and a half, sometimes 2.5. It just really depends on the proximity and the agenda items. For those site visits, if you're close enough, your whole team could potentially travel to your mentor. If it's further away and you have to use travel funds to do that, then that's going to be that might be your limiting factor. There may be options to dial in and have your entire team participate in those mentor check-ins. Mentors typically will check in once a month. We do require that they maintain contact with their mentees throughout the period of time. It's just they're gonna vary based on what the mentees need. But there's no limitation from your staff side of who can participate on those calls and who can participate in the program. We really want it to be a team effort. The funding is going to support the whole program. I see the question about what the funding can be used for. So because it is deliverable based, right, it's in general to recover your expenses related to operating the program and conducting the work and traveling, and as long as they're aligned with NEHA's funding receiving policies, then I would imagine that they're appropriate. What do mentees typically spend the funding on? Sometimes it's equipment, sometimes it's thermometers, sometimes it is travel for attending the site visits. Sometimes it's travel to the end of year meeting if we're able to have one in person. And then it's a lot of staff time. But once you get into the program, we have a mentorship program guidebook that I think gets just about longer every year. It's like 20 some pages. It has best practices, tips and tricks, sample agenda items for check-in meetings, sample agendas for in-person meetings, contact lists for everyone across the board. And typically the mentors have participated in at least one round of mentorship before. They've been there, done that. And they have a really good sense of how to help the mentee identify what's best for them to be working on at that moment. It's obviously the CSIP and the SA9 in track 1, but sometimes folks do try to work on some standards in that process as well, and the mentors are there to help you along that way. We find a lot of folks, there's a really good high reward return on investment, at least in terms of, I know we're trying to capture the numbers of that, but in terms of relationship building, networking, and like confidence in working towards the retail program standards, and sort of continuing to work on the standards over time, because you're building a network of folks who've been there, done that. You can lean on them, they'll share information, and it should be for the whole organization or a whole team at least, not just one individual.
Thanks, Chelsea. And I'll just add, I saw there was a season question and you kind of answered that, but I'll summarize it. Generally, you're going to have monthly calls with your mentor. Between mentor and mentees, you're going to have one site visit. That usually, sometime in the summer or fall. Again, the grant season starts April 1. You'll start your calls then. You'll have a couple NACHO calls during the year, but the big items are those monthly calls, the site visit in the middle of the year, and then the year-end meeting, which people love. This year it's virtual. We're hoping it might be in person next year, but depending on funding, stay tuned. And then also in terms of benefiting your team, I know that when when jurisdictions have issues, it's very common that several team members will get on a call with their mentor or with the NEHA team. So it really does go beyond just a couple employees. I also see a question that seems more about current grants. We've had people leave the department, and do we just reassign the deliverables to myself and remove those names? Reach out to the RFFM grant team. You don't necessarily have to update your grant. You might want to. It depends on how big the changes are, but we want to help you make sure you know what the deliverables are, what's met, what's not met, and help you get, if you need your application updated, great. But our biggest goal is just making sure you meet those deliverables. And it's not a concern of us. We know there's a lot of changes that happen with personnel. Our goal is always to help you get up to speed and be successful. We have a question about it. Will there be in-person SAVA workshops? Stay tuned. We don't, Mary Beth answered that. Stay tuned. We don't know that yet. Fingers crossed, but we are hoping that we see at least one during the grant year. And again, that grant year for these new grants is going to be April 1, 2026 through March 31, 2027.
All right.
Great questions, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any more questions. We did want to ask you guys one. I'm going to launch a quick webinar poll just to see if you guys are planning on applying for a grant.
And we know if you already started or you already submitted, because there's a bunch of you can just say yes to that question.
Of course.
Is that what you wanted? Would they say yes? It's probably
yes.
too. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
If they are already applying, please say yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I just saw a chat. Is there ever a time when you would not get all the funding if you did not meet all your goals? Yes, but we try really hard not to have that happen. And particularly when you run into unexpected obstacles, for an example, if you've got a track 2 grant and you were going to meet and audit 3 standards, but you lost your staff early in the year and you feel like, gosh, we can only meet and audit 1 standard, you would still get full funding. Another example, if you are a track 1 grantee and your deliverables are meet or complete the SA9 and a CSIP, and you didn't do that, maybe you only got the SA9 done, you would probably get partial funding depending on the circumstances. So I hope that helps, but we're always very reasonable and trying to really work with folks. We don't want you to water down your goals because you're afraid of losing funding. Keep those goals. If you think you can meet and audit 3 standards or 2 standards with us track 2 grant, go for it. You're not going to be penalized for trying hard if you run into unexpected obstacles. What are the date funds are distributed? We are hoping to make awards in late March with a April 1 date of start. So if those grants are made on time, which we anticipate, you will be able to begin spending money on April 1st. And that's not April Fool's joke either. It's a kind of a bad day to start a grant program, but.
All right. It seems overwhelmingly everybody here is planning to apply or has applied already.
Camilla, thank you for kind words. You're welcome. We believe in this program. We love it. Everybody on this team loves doing it, and we're happy. Somebody asked, why did I have to reapply just now for a NEHA account? I am just the grant writer, so I haven't signed into my account since receiving our grant, and that's been a while. There's 2 different NEHA accounts. You could be talking about NEHA membership here or registration for the grant portal. You should never have to, if you've got an account with the grant portal, you don't need a new one. So just make sure you can reach out to the RFFM grant support team. The information we've given a couple times will help answer that question, get you to the right place. Make sure you don't have duplicate accounts. I'm seeing, and we've had this before, I'm seeing somebody that has to get approval from your city council or some other political entity before you can apply. What we would say is apply, leave it in draft. You haven't applied, right? You can complete the application and leave it in draft. Let us know what's going on. And what we do is we leave it in draft, even if it's past the deadline, until you get approval. But that's only if you're going to miss applying before the deadline. You have to let us know in advance, work with it in advance. But that's work for most people, that they can leave it in draft, and we will submit it by the time, when you get approval.
I do see, Scott, you raise your hand. I'm gonna let you talk real quick, see if you can clarify for Bert here.
Yes, I actually, the process is once the grant award letter is received by us, that 2-month clock before we can accept it starts going through. Basically, all grants have to be processed by the city's Office of Grants Management, submitted to City Council for Council to approve accepting the grant.
Gotcha. I would say then you're probably just, we will do our best to get those award letters made as soon as we can. Maybe put that in your grant application, tell us your circumstances. And if there's any way we can pre-approve a few grants, we'll talk to FDA. Might not be able to do that, but we'll do everything we can. But I will say this, you can do, the deliverables for this grant can be done in 10 months. So I don't think it puts you at a huge disadvantage. See a couple more questions. There's a question about track 1 training and the SAVA workshop being virtual. You don't need to apply. There's no cost for the virtual workshop, so you don't need a training grant for that. What I would say at this point in time is go ahead and put one in anyways. We are working with FDA to either find out what's scheduled or to see if there's maybe other options that could be offered as well. So that might be something that has to be addressed after grant awards are made. But if you're interested in getting training in track 1, I would say apply for the options that are there, and we'll take it from there. Hope that is fair, and feel free to ask if you have more questions on that. There's a question about, is the grant to the health department or to the individual? All grants go to the jurisdiction, whether that's a health department, a health coalition, whatever that is, states, locals, tribes, territories. No money goes to individuals. And all the criterion, it's not individuals that complete a self-assessment of all 9 standards. It's the jurisdiction. It's not the individual that meets standards. It's the jurisdiction. So these grants, that's why employee names can change. These go to the jurisdiction. Where can you find the training options? On the RFFM website, you'll find the training options as we know them right now. But you can also, in the grants themselves, they kind of you can also see what's generally acceptable. So in a track 1 grant, you can apply for the self-assessment verification audit workshop or the FDA seminars, or both. In track 2, there's a list of about 12 different options, from regional seminars to FDA seminars to some specific courses. And there's also an other option, but basically any professionally offered retail food safety training is going to be eligible. Yep, and I think the link for some of those trainings is in the chat. But again, that website, we're going to keep that up to date as much as we can if there's new. And if suddenly we know about a lot of new options before the grant portal closes, we will send that out as an email, I'm sure. If you've already submitted and it's not February 12 yet, that is, we want to emphasize, get your application submitted by February 12th. But if you submit early and you say, oh my gosh, I forgot to do this, or, oh, there's new information, we can quote unsubmit them. We can move them back to draft. you can update your application and you can resubmit it. That's an open all the way up to February 12th. We can do that. And feel free to ask as many questions as you want. Some people never call us. Some people call a couple times a week. So we'd love to help any questions that you have. And there's a lot of good guidance information on that website. Evan, do you want to just pull up kind of that contact information slide as we near the close? And folks can either take a picture of that or, again, it's easily found on the website.
As I get my screen up, Art, is this the one that you're talking about?
Double click. There we go. Yeah, there's the website at the bottom of the screen there. That's got, and you've also got the phone numbers here. Yeah, this is the best way to find both published information and to get you to the people who can either answer your questions. And I would say we generally can answer 80 to 90% of the questions as soon as we get them. But if it needs to go to FDA, if it needs to go to others at NEHA, other than the frontline phone and email answering people, we'll get those right away to you. We do try to answer live as much as we can. We will really be aggressive about getting you the help you need while this portal's open. We know this is an important program for many of you all.
And I did just put in the chat, the neha.org/retail-grants-resources. This is where the webinar will be. Webinar 1 recording and the slides are already available. Once webinar 2 is processed, the video is processed, we will upload that as well.
And if you're jumping at the bit, webinar 1 is the same presentation.
Yep,
the
same slides.
questions, and a lot of the questions are the same too, but you probably will get some benefit by looking at the questions between the two.
Give you guys a couple minutes if there are any additional questions. But we just all from NEHA and our FDA partners, NACCHO partners, we all want to thank you for taking the time to be here today. We've got some really great questions. Really happy we could answer them. And please feel free, keep asking questions. Retailgrants@neha.org. We're always available via email to answer anything that might come up while you're doing your application. Just a minute or two, see if anybody has one last question we can answer. But if not, feel free to go about your day. Thank you all for coming.